Hello, welcome to Just the Dis. My name is Brian, and this is a place where we talk about Blu-rays. This is going to be relatively quick, I think. This is a video I decided to do based on the fact that Kino Lorber is currently having a Noirvember sale through their website. And so I think there's about 120 eligible titles. And so I just went through the titles and I pulled out some discs that I have that I will recommend to y'all. So that you can see what I'm going to show you. Just because there was a lot of stuff in there that I like. And it's not all, old black and white noir. Some of it is a bit more modern. Although I'm going to start with a black and white movie, and it's one of my favorites, Mirage from '65. So this one, as you can see, stars Gregory Peck and Diane Baker, and it is very much a Hitchcocky kind of thing. I could call it sort of a straighter North by Northwest, but it's not quite as not quite as globe hopping as that movie. That movie just goes all over. And this one is a little bit more, it's New York City and then there's some other locations, but it's not quite as wild and crazy or comedic as North by Northwest. But it does start with Gregory Peck in an office building in New York. All the lights go out. He meets a woman in the stairwell. She seems to know him. He doesn't know her. And then she disappears down to like the sub-basement level or something. And the lights come back on. Suddenly no sub-basement. And the mystery begins. What's happening? Why is it happening to him? And he's having trouble remembering things. And so it's a really enjoyable movie. This is directed by Edward Dmytryk, who did some great noirs in the 40s. And it also has Kevin McCarthy, Jack Weston, George Kennedy, and others. The screenplay is by Peter Stone, who also did the screenplay to Charade, which is another movie, also a bit more of a light touch, but Peter Stone definitely liked to do the Hitchcock type script, but I prefer this movie to Charade. I think that's just me, but I don't know, there's just something really cool about it. This is a black and white movie, and it's 185 to 1, so not 235. But anyway, definitely recommended. Part of the sale, pick it up. Mirage. Let's pick this up a little bit. Sorry. Okay, real noir here. Roadhouse, not the Patrick Swayze. Obviously, this one has Cornel Wilde, it has Ida Lupino, and it has Richard Widmark as the three main characters. Basically, Richard Widmark runs a roadhouse, which is like, in this case, sort of like a motel, but also a truck stop. Also has a bowling alley and a nightclub in it, and so he is in the habit of picking up new girls to do singing in his nightclub, and it's just generally a veiled attempt to bring women in that he can try and seduce. And Cornel Wilde works at the Roadhouse, but also is sort of partnering, not financially, but is like a right-hand man to Widmark's character. And at the beginning of the movie, Widmark brings back Ida Lupino, who is sexier than ever in this movie, and she's great. I love the dialogue in this film. It's so good. And so Cornel Wilde immediately is like, oh, here's another girl he brought back. I'm just going to go ahead and take her back to the train station. And Ida Lupino's like, no, you're not. I got hired to do this job. I'm going to do it. And tough stuff for you, man. So it just sort of becomes like a, love triangle, but like dark and dangerous as it progresses. But very good. This one has a commentary from film noir historians Kim Morgan and Eddie Muller. Very good track. That's ported over from the original Fox DVD, but I really like this movie a lot. Definitely worth your time. Roadhouse. All right. Okay, another more modern one, The Public Eye. This is from 1992. This is one that I thought I had seen, and I really couldn't say for sure until I got this Blu-ray and then watched it. It seemed new to me, but I did like it. This is a movie that comes from director Howard Franklin, who, of course, co-directed with Bill Murray on Quick Change. He also did the Bill Murray vehicle Larger Than Life. But this is a really special movie because it's one of those that got made partially because of where Howard Franklin was, but also because Joe Pesci, I think, had just won the Academy Award for Goodfellas, and so he was hot property. And basically, he plays a crime scene. He's like not a crime scene photographer that works for the cops, but he's like a paparazzi, not a paparazzi exactly, but just a guy who takes photos of crime scenes, sells them to newspapers, and has made a big name for himself doing that. And he's based on a real guy. I forget the name of the guy. They actually mention it in the commentary, but it's really good because it's like a noir, but it's not like a self-aware noir, like neo-noir. It's really more like a noir story that you could have seen in the 40s, like about a guy, a photographer in that period, and so it's really good. And unfortunately, it was one of those that I think, had some bad marketing. They tried to play it off as a comedy, which it really kind of isn't that. And I think it also had a bad opening weekend. It was up against something big or something like that. And anyway, Joe Pesci's character becomes infatuated with this woman played by Barbara Hershey, and there's some underhanded dealings, some criminal stuff that he kind of gets caught up in, and things get complicated. But he's very good in this, and this movie is well worth your time. There is a commentary with Howard Franklin on this, which is great. I really like that. But 235 to 1. I think I remember Eddie Muller pairing this at a Noir Fest with like Rear Window. You've got two photographer movies. And I thought that was super cool. An older noir-ish movie with a newer noir-ish movie. I just thought that was great. And that sort of put it back on my radar because I remembered the movie coming out, but not really, just kind of, it didn't really register at the time in 92 for me. But I really enjoyed it. Definitely worth picking up. The Public Eye. Boy, I'm going slow. All right, another modern 52 Pickup. This is a Canon film. And as you can see, it has Roy Scheider and Anne Margaret. It also has Vanity, John Glover, Clarence Williams III. This movie is great. And I actually did an episode of Just the Disc, the podcast, coming out in early December that deals with this movie. And so definitely look forward to that. Check that out if you can. But briefly, I'll just say Roy Scheider is like a scientist, industrialist type who, at the beginning of the movie, I'm not going to spoil too much, but he is basically kidnapped by a group of lowlifes who happen to have evidence of an extramarital affair that he's having, and they go immediately after him to blackmail him. And his wife, played by Anne Margaret, is running for city council, and so he decides he's going to try and cut them off at the knees and tell her about it, and that ain't the end of it. It definitely continues to go. These bad guys are very bad, and they are not going to let him out of this situation that easily. This is directed by John Frankenheimer. It is a script by Elmore Leonard, based on his book. So I love Elmore Leonard. Obviously, Jackie Brown, Out of Sight, Get Shorty. He's been the subject or the author of many great crime fiction turned films, and this is a really good one. And I think he writes criminals particularly well. He writes them as very, very evil people. and it's almost like he knows them intimately, and that they think on another level of badness, and that's what happens here. But that's very good. Follow that up with another Roy Scheider, Last Embrace. This is from Jonathan Demme. It's from 1979. Another kind of Hitchcocky thing. I might have to read this one because it's been a minute since I've seen it, but I do love it. Roy Scheider stars in this twisting tale of murder and mystery, skillfully directed by Demme and inspired by the great films of Alfred Hitchcock. Harry Hannon Scheider, as a government agent still haunted by the violent death of his wife, begins to lose everything else dear to him. His colleagues and his boss have turned against him. He's lost his apartment to a brainy anthropologist, Janet Margolin, and a psychopath starts sending him death threats. Harry hires a private investigator to help him find the identity of the stalker and unravel the intricate puzzle, but it only leads to more questions as the killer gets closer and closer. So yeah, it's definitely a cool, twisty plot, very Hitchcock, and if you're a fan of Roy Scheider, if you love Jaws, this is only a few years after that, and I think it's really neat to see the films that he did in the wake of Jaws. And this is one of my favorites of the ones he did. If you like Hitchcock knockoffs, Last Embrace is a good way to go. All right. More straight noir, 99 River Street, with John Payne and Evelyn Keyes from 1953, directed by, this one is Phil Carlson, who's a really great journeyman, sometimes low-budget director, but he made a lot of great noir, and there's one called Phoenix City Story that is a really tough one to find on DVD. I think it's out of print, but that's a Scorsese favorite. Anyway, same director. He's done a ton of great stuff. I might even have another one of his in this stack. This one, I'm trying to remember. It's like a cabbie. Down on his luck, former boxing contender John Payne turned cab driver has to hide from the police when he's accused of murdering his badgering wife, when her lifeless body turns up in the back of his cab. On the run and out of time, he needs to bring the real killer to justice before the cops and the thugs responsible for the setup get their hands on him. Yeah, so he's just in a bad spot. Who killed his wife? What's going on? John Payne plays that sort of put upon, I don't want to say schmo, but the guy in the noir film that's in bad trouble, and you kind of don't know if he's going to be able to get out of it. But this is really solid. That description may not have done much for you, but trust me, this is a great one. 99 River Street. All right, something French. This is Jean-Pierre Melville, Le Doulos. Probably I don't know. One of my favorite Jean-Pierre Melville films. He, of course, of Le Samurai, Army of Shadows, Bob Le Flambeur, which I think actually is part of the group too, and I recommend that also. But this one is really great. I couldn't even really explain the plot. I mean, the back might try and do it here. Like, it's of course got Jean-Paul Belmondo, and he is wonderful. And I remember this is a movie where the first time I saw it, a friend of mine sat me down and he's like, "You got to see this one, man." And I sat down and I was watching it, and I just was so pissed off. I'm like, what in the world is going on in this movie? I don't understand what's happening. This movie's terrible. And then by the end, I was like, that movie was amazing, because there is a certain sense of, what is Belmondo's character doing and why is he doing it? And so he's sort of, it's just a bunch of criminals messing with each other, kind of, and you have to kind of follow it. Even if you do, you won't necessarily see where it's going to go. And so that's one of the things I really love about it. Other thing that's really great is this disc has an audio commentary by film historian Sam Deegan, and she's fantastic, and I really like the track, so that is worth your time. It also has an interview with assistant director Volker Schlondorf and Birth of the Detective Story Melville style documentary. So it's actually got several features. And this one came out on Criterion DVD, but it has not been upgraded to Blu-ray through Criterion. So if you want it on Blu-ray in the States, this is the way to do it. But if you like, Jean-Pierre Melville, Le Samurai, those kind of movies, this will be right up your alley. Very good stuff, very minimalist, But it's really cool, and I really like it a lot. Le Doulos, another modern one with I, the Jury, with Armand Assante. Let's see here, from 1982. And it is based on the novel by Mickey Spillane. And Armand Assante plays Mickey Spillane, the classic detective in this one. And it's got Barbara Carrera, Alan King, Jeffrey Lewis, Paul Sorvino. It's really sleazy. It's, your sort of standard kind of detective movie, but it's I just remember the opening. I'll never forget, because it's like you see Armand Assante in bed, then you see, I think there's a woman with him, or maybe you don't see the woman right away, but he answers the phone and it's a client of his asking about his wife. Can you please tell me, I hired you to watch my wife. Can you tell me what's going on? And of course, he's sleeping with the guy's wife. That's how sleazy a detective he is. So that just gives you a sense of like what this movie's going to be. And the script is by Larry Cohen. So it's Larry Cohen adapting Mickey Spillane. So that's, makes it a little grittier, a little darker than, say, Kiss Me Deadly or something like that. It's solid stuff. And it's a remake because this thriller had been made before in the 40s excitement, and the excitement of the 80s come together in this dazzling remake of the classic Mickey Spillane thriller, I, the Jury. Straight from the school of a hard-boiled detective comes Private Eye Mike Hammer, played by the ruggedly sexy Armand Assante. Hammer sets out to get the guys who did in his friend Jack. His quest for vengeance leads him onto the paths of the CIA, a sexy doctor, and a kinky killer. Anyway, you don't need to know much more. If you've seen any Mike Hammer, movies, they're gritty and entertaining, and I enjoy the character of Mike Hammer as a noir hero, if you will. So, I, the Jury. Here's the other Phil Carlson I was thinking of. This is a Joe Don Baker movie called Framed, and that's kind of what it is. He is a guy. From the makers of the highly successful Walking Tall comes the ultimate story of revenge. Joe Don Baker plays a gambler who is framed for a crime he did not commit. A corrupt legal system leads him into a plea bargain of 4 years behind bars. By the time he gets out of prison, he's determined to put the pieces back together of his frame up and dole out justice. So, revenge movie, guy goes to jail. There's some good bits in here. There's a couple fights I remember in garages where people like really go at each other in a pretty intense way. But if you like Joe Don Baker and you like revenge stories with Joe Don Baker, all the better. But I really like Framed. All right, another classic here. This is from 1947. I Walk Alone. So you can see Burt Lancaster, Elizabeth Scott, Wendell Corey, Kirk Douglas, directed by Byron Haskin. This is the story of two bootleggers played by Lancaster and Kirk Douglas. And it says they split up to evade capture by the police. Frankie is caught and jailed, but the other one manages to escape and open a posh New York City nightclub. Years later, Frankie is released from the clink and now visits Null with the intention of collecting his half of the nightclub's profits. So basically, Burt Lancaster goes to jail. Kirk Douglas stays out, opens a nightclub. Burt Lancaster gets out of jail, says, "Give me money because I went to jail for what we did." And it's tense, but these two are great. And if you haven't seen this one, really, really worth your time. Maybe one of the best movies in this stack. Okay, this one was new to me this year. This came as a recommendation from Edgar Wright. Director Edgar Wright. I saw him comment on a tweet about this, and it really is good. It's an Ealing Studios movie from 1951 from director Basil Dearden, and it is it's all about, I'm trying to remember this one. It was a while ago too. Two sailors on shore leave when they inadvertently become caught up in a crime as murky as the Great River itself. For one of them, Johnny, life is further complicated when he falls in love with Pat, a local ticket seller, forming one of the first interracial relationships in British film history. Jack Whittingham and John Elridge co-wrote this authentic and unmissable film noir, beautifully shot in glorious black and white. I just remember there's a bit where they're trying to, they basically get roped into a scheme to smuggle some stuff because they are able to go in and out of London with their boat, and they have to report anything that they're bringing on board, and if they get caught with anything, they get in big trouble. And so there's a tension of like, one of the guys is like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to smuggle. And the other guy's like, I don't think it's a good idea. And there's a really kind of, uptight dude that checks them out when they come on the ship, and he's very unpredictable. So it is not clear whether or not the dude will get away with the smuggling or not. And there's other stuff happening, and there's a, time clock thing kind of going because the boat leaves at a certain time. And I don't know, this was really solid. I really enjoyed this, and I wouldn't have known about it had it not come up as an Edgar Wright recommendation. Audio commentary by entertainment journalist and author Brian Reisman. Interview with actor Earl Cameron. Locations featurette. But this just came out, I want to say this just came out this year. So it's a newer one. Pool of London. Just a couple more here. Midnight Lace. Doris Day, Rex Harrison, John Gavin, 1960. This is Roddy McDowall and Myrna Loy. That's right. So Doris Day plays this woman who lives with her husband in London, and I forget what he does, but basically she starts getting these horrible phone calls that are just like taunting her and really scary stuff. Stalkery stuff. And when it comes to try and prove it to her husband, she suddenly runs into some trouble. And of course, this is before caller ID of any kind. And so it becomes a thing where the husband is like wanting to help her, but he's a little concerned. From his point of view, it seems like maybe she's going crazy. And some of her friends are not that supportive of this crazy idea of this dude calling her up and being creepy. So it becomes sort of a psychological thriller in that sense, and one of the darker, more noirish movies that Doris Day ever did, and one of my favorite performances from her. And it's intense because it really puts her through the ringer ultimately. But Myrna Loy is great, and Roddy McDowall, John Gavin, they're all really good. But this one was really hard to see for a while. I had a Regent 2 DVD, and then this came out last year maybe. Somewhat recently, and has an audio commentary from film historian Kat Ellinger. So always quality stuff there. Definitely recommended. And last, He Ran All the Way. John Garfield and Shelley Winters. Directed by John Barry. Screenplay by Guy and Dory and Hugo Butler. But this one is really definitely that fatalistic noir. You've got Nick Roby, that's John Garfield. He's a dim-witted thug who lives with his mother and scrapes by on petty crime. He and his slick accomplice plot a big-time payroll robbery, but their plan goes horribly awry, and when they're discovered by a uniformed policeman, a shootout ensues, leaving Al and the wounded cop and Nick on the run. While seeking cover, Nick meets Peggy Dobbs, that's Shelley Winters, a lonely young girl who takes Nick to her family's apartment. While there, the paranoid thief decides to take the family hostage until he can escape. And it says this is the great John Garfield's final film. He died less than a year later at age 39, which is very sad. But it is a cool, dark, hostage thriller. And Shelley Winters is great. If you liked her in A Place in the Sun, when she plays that sort of lonely, sad kind of character, she could do it really well in this way that's sympathetic and emotionally engaging. And so seeing the two of them together is really great. But this was one that was also not easily available for a very long time. I don't know if it had a home video release. Maybe there was VHS, but I don't think there was a DVD. Don't quote me. But this Blu-ray was definitely a big deal because this movie had been underseen for so long. But definitely worth your time. He ran all the way. So that will do it for my Kino Noirvember sale recommendations. Hopefully there's something in here that sounds interesting to you. If you pick up anything from that sale, let me know. I'm sure there's a bunch of other titles that I missed. Oh, one that I should say that I don't have, that I do recommend, and I want, is the Ida Lupino collection. That is definitely one that I'm considering picking up myself. So I can't show that to you because I don't own it, but that would be on my list as well to recommend. But thank you for watching, and like and subscribe, and let me know what you thought of this video, and if you've watched any cool noirs other than these or anything they're selling, I'd love to hear about that too. Thank you.